What a disgusting, miserable, cynical bastard. What is this? No, nothing ever. So boring. Welcome back. Today I wanted to do something a little bit different, once again, because I feel like on this channel so far all I've been really doing is praising bands and albums that I really like, and haven't really said much negative in the way of the world of music. So I thought it would be a bit refreshing to have a bit of a rant about some bands that I'm not a big fan of, let's say. Now, these are a bunch of bands that have huge fan bases, like absolutely massive fan bases, kind of outside of stuff that I generally listen to. And the only one rule that I had for these bands was that they had to have at least one platinum album, and the majority of these have far more than that. So it would be very easy to criticize a bunch of bands that, you know, they're underground, no one's heard of, poor production, you know, low budget, all the rest of it. Very easy to do that because there's been, you know, hundreds of thousands. So I wanted these to be hugely successful artists, right? But artists that throughout the many years of me looking at bands and discovering music and trying out different things and giving things second, third or fourth chances, or just them being ubiquitous and impossible to avoid throughout my life. These are bands that have essentially annoyed me so much that I just don't get, I've never appreciated, I don't understand why people do. None of these are in any particular order, by the way. I'm going to leave the last two as the most like contentious and oh my god, how can you say that kind of takes. So be sure to watch to the end. But let's get into it. First band on my list is Oasis.
Because maybe
as a Brit, people often assume a couple of things about me. One, that I watch football, which I don't. And two, that I like Oasis, which I also don't. I can't stand Oasis. I have never understood the appeal of Oasis. I find the Gallaghers an obnoxious pair of twats. Whichever Gallagher does the singing has like the worst voice. Terrible, nasally, awful, generic at best voice. And the songs just saturated guitar, noisy nonsense. And me saying noisy nonsense, I know, is a little bit hypocritical, but it's the wrong kind of noise, okay? It's just dreary and miserable, and as a Brit, I feel like I have more. To me, they're not exotic, you know? I think probably Americans would see Oasis as kind of this, you know, British, UK grunge equivalent. To me, it's just terrible and low-hanging fruit, basic bitch music. It seems like if you're a big fan of Oasis, you probably discovered Oasis when you were very young, and then you just stopped seeking out new music. Because there's so much more out there that's way more interesting and better put together. Never liked Oasis, never will. I think they're crap. Onto a band with arguably a bigger legacy than Oasis is U2. U2 are apparently one of the biggest rock bands of all time, and in my life, I don't think I've ever knowingly met a U2 fan. Ever. I'm sure they must have come up in conversation at some point with some people throughout the last 25, 30 years of my life, and I've never heard anyone defend U2. I've never heard anyone say, how can you say that about U2, or you're just too young, you don't get it. I've never heard anything like that. Apparently, wherever all these fans of U2 are, they just avoid me. I don't get U2. Again, it's similar with Oasis. It's just it just washes over you in the most dreary, boring, asinine way. And one of the guitarist calls himself The Edge. What a pretentious asshole name. And Bono, oh, don't get me started with Bono. The guy's the biggest hypocrite. Bono once like got a hat flown over on a tour or something on a plane, like just the plane in a plane seat on its own, so that he could wear a hat. And you know, I see him as such a huge hypocrite. He goes on and on and on about we've got to save the world. Think of all the poor little children. I know I can't do an Irish accent, forgive me, but. If you feel that way, if you really feel that strongly about all these causes, then maybe give away some of your own millions and help the causes that you're trying to help. Anyway, that's kind of besides the point. The point is U2's music is bland, drab, grey, awful, uninspired nonsense that I don't understand how they've had such an enormously long career, and I never will. The weird thing is, and this is very weird, the only U2 song I enjoy is one that was it was a collaboration with either Boyzone or the Backstreet Boys. Not the Backstreet Boys, what am I talking about? Take That or some 90s pop boy band. I thought that was okay. For some reason. Hate U2, always have. I will never understand it, and I've never heard anyone defend them, so I don't really understand where the love comes from. So yeah, U2, go away. Next on the list is Radiohead. Of these three so far, Radiohead is probably the least egregious, because I think it's been less like shoved in my face. And that's the problem with a lot of these bands, is it's like the world is saying like, here, listen to this, listen to this, listen to this. And I'm like, no, I don't want to listen to this, I don't want to listen to this, I don't want to listen to this. Whereas Radiohead has been less like that. But that said, I still find their music drab and boring and uninteresting, and it's like, it just makes me want to fall asleep. And as you might know about me, I like energetic, upbeat, intense, heavy, fun music. And Radiohead's not fun. Radiohead is literally the opposite of fun. Again, I can't really rant too much about Radiohead because I know fewer songs of theirs. I mean, there's Creep, obviously, and I really don't get the appeal of that song. It's like Muse, but even more dull. And bland and uninteresting. So yeah, Radiohead, short rant, but still don't get it at all. Next on my list is one that is more egregious and is more like shoved in your face, like you should like this, is Coldplay. Coldplay, I had a bootleg copy of their first album, Parachutes, I think it's called. And when I was 12, it was okay. It was fine. If I listen to it now, I haven't listened to it for a long time, but if I listen to it now, there'd probably be a lot of nostalgia there because of, I mean, the last time I listened to it would have been in excess of 20 years ago. But what a boring, soy boy, milquetoast, bland, fluffy, pillowy. No, they're so dull. And this is a common theme with all of these bands so far. But Coldplay are just the epitome of the opposite of what I want in guitar-based music. Like the exact opposite. Like you could do any kind of music that you wanted to do. You have the platform, you have the band, you have the instruments. You could revolutionize music, but instead you make music for middle-aged women. Ugh. I'm clearly not the target audience for these bands. I acknowledge that, but I just hate Coldplay. I hate them, and they particularly amongst Brits. I'm now realizing all of these bands are British bands. Huh. Interesting. It seems like there's something in British culture that just appreciates bland, boring. Maybe it's the weather. Maybe that's what it is. I can't stand them. Please go away, Coldplay. I do not like you. The next on my list is the first British band, which is Kiss. When I was younger, in my music discovery days, 12, 13, 14, I was aware of Kiss. They have quite an image that sticks in your mind, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna make a note of them, and I'll get round to listening to them at some point. They're probably pretty heavy, judging by the way they look. Wrong. I can't think of another band whose image is less representative of the sound of the band. Like, they should sound like, I don't know, Marilyn Manson or something, but instead they sound just bleh. Again, bland, dull, rock and rolly. Ugh. And Gene Simmons, oh my god, he's probably one of my least favourite people in all of the entire music industry. What a disgusting, miserable, cynical bastard. I hate you, Gene Simmons, if you're watching. And everyone does. Everyone hates Gene Simmons. He's the epitome of corporatization of the music industry. And I know, it's a business, I get it, whatever, but he sells coffins with the Kiss logo on them. He'd sell you Kiss branded, I don't know, diabetes medication if he could. And the band itself, I never saw the point of it. Never got it. I never understood. Maybe it's, slightly before my time, perhaps. But I mean, they're still going today somehow, and they still have, like, kids are into Kiss these days. I'm like, what are you missing? How have you discovered this band and gone, yeah, that's cool, that's hardcore, I'm into it? What? I've never heard a single Kiss song that didn't underwhelm me. And that can be the same said for Oasis, and U2, and Radiohead, and Coldplay, and Kiss. I've never once heard a song that I'm like, wow, that's inspiring. I've never heard anything like this before. This is like getting into my soul, man, or under my skin. It's giving me goosebumps. No, nothing ever. So boring. Okay, getting down to the last three. And this one I don't think will be too much of a surprise to most people who know me. This band is very much outside of my generation, my taste in music, everything. This hasn't so much been thrusted in my face, but it's a band that just has, of all the things I like in music, this band has nothing of what I look for in music. Not a single smidgen of a thing. And that band is ABBA.
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 Mamma mia! No!
I hate ABBA. I hate it so much. My dad was really into ABBA. Probably still is really into ABBA. And so in that sense it was thrust upon me. In terms of media and outside, no. But I heard it so much. I'm just like, what is this? No! This sounds like music written by 6-year-olds, performed by however old they were at the time, adults. Like, the lyrical content is, brain dead. And I know English wasn't their first language, they're from Sweden, that's fine, I get it. But you can run it by some people. You can run it by some English-speaking people and say, hey, is this on the scale of a nursery rhyme or Shakespeare? Or somewhere in the middle? You know, you can do that, you have that freedom. And I guess ABBA never did. They were just like, yes, we make music for children, let's just release it in adult form. Hate ABBA with a passion. They're probably actually, in terms of just pure music, probably my least favourite artist of all time, because there's, not only is there nothing there for me, there's no like heavy guitars or drums or synths or large bombastic elements of music, there's none of that, but there's also the opposite of that. Like I said, dumb lyrics, meaningless trash. So it goes, liking is up here, being indifferent is here, and hating it is down here. They're all the way down here. Fuck ABBA. Okay, the last two. And these, I feel, will be probably the most divisive and contentious entries on this list. So prepare yourself. I don't like the Beatles. I think the Beatles are one of the most overblown, over-publicized, over-fantasized bands possibly of all history. Again, my dad listened to the Beatles, and there was a brief period where I'm like, yeah, I sort of get it now, where it was like, due to exposure, my brain just slowly started accepting it in the same way that your brain starts to accept crap music on the radio because it's played over and over and over and over again. There was a very brief period, and it was kind of before I really started to discover the music that I wanted to listen to. I don't understand the appeal of the Beatles. I understand the appeal back when they were, you know, rising stars, and you know, nothing like this had ever really been done before. They were the first of a kind, sure. That doesn't make them the best of that kind of thing. I don't get the lore and the fandom behind the Beatles, and I think the music, the production side of it is just crap. Like, I was in a car with someone once, and they were playing the Beatles. I'm like, okay, whatever, it's your car. I'm a music nerd. I take pride in knowing how music production should be done. And in the car, in the sound system, the drums were panned all the way over on my side of the car, and then everything else was on the other side. I'm like, what the hell? Who thought that was a good idea? I know it was the recorded music industry was in its infancy then, but who thought that putting the drums on the right side of the mix was a good idea? What the? And again, similar to ABBA, they don't really have many elements that I look for in music. And I find them just boring and uninspiring and just. So the final one on this list will probably be, I think, the most surprising, given the fact that I obviously do listen to a lot of metal and have done for a long time. And this band will have inspired possibly almost every single band that I have ever listened to or enjoyed. And that band is Metallica. I can't stand Metallica. This was actually the band that made me want to make this entire video. It sort of started with Metallica, and then I sort of thought of other bands that I could lump in with how much I don't enjoy Metallica. And this is the most egregious one in terms of it being shoved in my face. Because I'm a metalhead, because I've listened to metal for so many years, it's been a constant non-stop stream of Metallica it feels like forever. You know, some people would say, oh, you haven't listened to Ride the Lightning or all these albums. Like, no, I haven't. I have never ever sat down and consciously listened to a Metallica album. Granted. But I don't have to, because I've heard it all before. It's, whenever you go to a rock bar, or it's unavoidable. You go to a gig of like 3 bands, none of which are Metallica, and they'll be playing Metallica in the tannoy before the show starts. I know what Metallica sounds like. I've heard probably songs from every album of theirs, and including deep cuts, not by choice, but just because it's been floating around in the air around me against my will, and that's the biggest problem. I've never once listened to a Metallica song and go, I'm not a big fan of Metallica, but this one sounds really good. Not once. Slayer, on the other hand, they came up before my time, Slayer, but I grew to love them over time. I feel like Slayer and Metallica were here at one point in history, and they needed to go to the bathroom. Slayer went into the guys, and Metallica went into the ladies. I don't understand why, if you're into thrash or music of that era, why you would choose to listen to Metallica over Slayer, or Anthrax for that matter. I don't know Anthrax that well, but I know what they sound like, and to me they sound better than Metallica. James Hetfield's voice sounds, and always has sounded, incredibly forced, and compared to Tom Araya, I think Metallica and Slayer is a good comparison. Compared to Tom Araya, his voice is he's got no range. It sounds incredibly forced. As he's got older, his voice has just started to sound worse and worse. I know Lars being a bad drummer is a meme at this point, but he is a bad drummer. Come on, compared to Dave Lombardo.
We have to start it again?
Well, that was fucking dreadful.
I find their riffs really generic and uninspired. Just boring. If someone gave me tickets to go and see Metallica live for free, I don't know if I'd bother going. I think I'd just sell the tickets. I had so little interest in Metallica, and it's annoying because people assume of me by proxy, if I love Slayer, I must love Metallica. No, I don't. I never have, and I never will. And of all of these artists, because they're the closest to what I listen to, in a way, they're the worst for me. Because people assume of me that because I love metal, I must be into Metallica. So frustrating. And then when I say to someone in a bar or something, oh, I've never really been into Metallica, they're like, what the fuck? I'm like, yeah, I don't like Metallica. I think they're incredibly overrated. I think they're way past their prime. I think they were way past their prime in the early 2000s. Saint Anger? Come on.
Is an instrument?
No, Patrick, is not an instrument.
Compare Saint Anger to God Hates Us All. They're complete worlds apart. Why would you listen to Metallica over Slayer? I don't understand it. I don't get the appeal. I never will. Maybe if I was around when Metallica were popping off in the 80s, maybe. But even then, I would still have preferred Slayer over Metallica, 100%. Oh, and because I have this bias against Metallica, which some people would argue is unfair and unfounded or whatever. I did my due diligence at one point and watched that documentary that they made around the time of Saint Anger, Some Kind of Monster, I think it's called. And in that documentary, they just seemed like a bunch of spoiled children with far too much money and far too much time to just be whiny twats. It made me like them even less when I saw what was going on behind closed doors. Alright, admittedly with a camera in their face, but you'd think even then they'd try to save face a little bit more. But no, they were just grumpy teenagers struggling with getting old, I guess. I don't know. It made me hate them even more. That's it. I think I've said everything I needed to say. I just had to get this off my chest. I just finished work and just came home, had a shower, and I just had to get this video done. Yeah, I'm sure people will have things to say about this, so by all means, in the comments, sound off. If you feel like giving this video a dislike, feel free. That's what it's there for. I know the public can't see it, but I can. So I'm curious. I'm curious to see how many dislikes this video gets. Yeah, this is kind of why I left Metallica to the end, because if people don't watch to the end, then they're probably not going to find that out. So thank you for sticking around to the end of the video. I appreciate that. If any of these takes on these bands rub you the wrong way, just let me know. I'll be curious to hear. This isn't an objective thing. This is just my opinion and my experience with these bands. If you like these bands, more power to you. You go ahead and sing ABBA songs. Mamma mia! No! But yeah, that's it. I'm done now. Thank you very much for watching. I still haven't thought how to end videos yet though, so I'm just going to say, go away.